All right. Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Week 5, farm to table. Almost halfway there. How's everybody feeling? Good. Solid. All right. Any questions or comments regarding this past week? The crop, cover crop, granola or bean salad? Anything that anybody would like to share or any question that they have? Nope. All right.
I
Chefs?
have no granola left.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good sign. Awesome. Yeah. Once you, again, teaching yourself how to make things that we commonly buy, it allows you to have your own, you can create your flavor profile that you want, and you have control on the integrity of the ingredients. You know what's going in there. It's pretty fantastic. Chefs.
All right, I'll go first. Everything did look really good. Remember, on those recipes, your externships coming up, always follow those knife cuts. If you're on your externship and somebody says an oblique or a large dice or a brunoise, always make sure you're following that, because whatever you're cutting is always going to be for a reason. It's not just because it'll cook evenly. Sometimes it'll be in a salad, and you don't want it to overshadow something like the beans. And then a lot of like these assignments that we do are kind of like a bigger picture. So it wasn't just about oatmeal, or it wasn't just about beans. It's about cover crops. We are going into the winter seasons coming up pretty quickly. So if you live in an area that's cold and you own a restaurant, things like dried beans, things like oats, they're going to sit in a dry storage shelf for a very long time. They really don't fluctuate in price a lot. They're easy to get. It's really accessible. They're not hard to cook. They sit for a long time. So when winter starts to come, we have to get out of the mindset of like watermelon and strawberries and all those fun things, and we have to think about it in business sustainability, and these things are that help with that business sustainability.
There we go. Like Chef Craig was saying, I love what he had to say about utilizing cover crops and seasonality. And with this week's assignment, knife cuts are the big thing, especially with that bean salad. You're not doing a lot of cooking there. So it really does, a lot of that technique that we were looking for comes from how you handled that knife and how well you executed those knife cuts. I did have a lot of people who only did one recipe for this week. And so if you are one of those, remember you can resubmit with those other components. It was all three.
Awesome. Thank you both. Yeah, unless it is stated otherwise, you're required to make all of the recipes. There are a couple weeks coming up that you have an option of making like 3 of the 4 or 2 of the 4, but otherwise all assignments are required each and every week. It's always stated at the top of the assignment page as well, that these are required. So again, unless it says otherwise, know that you're making everything. All right, cool. Well, yeah, let's drive home that point of knife cuts. We actually talked about that in live session last week, how important it was. And now here we are again, having to say it again. So really get on your game. Y'all are in culinary school, right? So this is a time to work on that, to practice that. Because when you get out in the industry, like the chef said, if somebody tells you to do a brunoise or julienne and you're giving them bâtonnet and small dice, guess what? That's not good, okay? There are reasons and applications for specific cuts. Reasons have to do exactly what they said with texture. How does it come in a salad? Is it a salad? Is it some mouthfeel? How do the ingredients mingle and play and dance with one another? Okay, that's the huge thing. You don't want to be getting huge bites of something and small of something else, unless that's the intention. In a salad, you want it to be, in a salad like that, you want it to be that those tomatoes to have a small play. You want that red onion, brunoise, so you're not getting a huge bite of onion in that. It mellows it out. It changes the entire way of how a salad or a meal or a dish is perceived because of the textural influence, right? Also, you're eating with your eyes. So you see huge chunks of onion and you're not an onion person, maybe you're going to steer away from that. But if you don't even know that there's onion in there, come to find out, hey, you know what, I really like this. And maybe it's because of those little slight differences of how something is prepared. All right, cool. So attention to detail, right? Very important when working in a kitchen, whether it's a recipe, the knife cut, time, temperature, et cetera, all really important things. All right, well, now enough about that. We are on to week 5, seafood, sustainability. We're gonna talk a little bit about what's in our waters, right? What's going on? Let's think about this. We're also gonna be learning a new technique called en papilote, which is old school French, where you're gonna be wrapping it and essentially steaming the fish or seafood and the vegetables in its own parcel, right? So this contains all the flavor, all the aroma, and when you open it at the guest, you're hit with all of this lovely, herbaceous, citrusy, and whatever vegetable and or seafood, because it's all been contained in the parcel. Okay, so we will get into that a little bit more, but before we hop onto that, let's talk about fish. What do we know? I see somebody asking both in one parcel. No, these are going to be separate. You're doing a fish and you're doing a vegetable, separate because of different cooking times. All right, once you master that technique, then yes, of course, moving forward, when you're having fun, you can do it together, but as we learn the technique, keeping it separate so you understand how the proteins and the vegetables cook independently of one another. Okay, cool. So let's talk about this. Wild caught, farm raised. What is it? Does anybody know any difference between these two? Have you seen both of these at the store? Do you think it matters? What are your thoughts? Let's hear from you guys. I want to hear what you guys think. Has anybody ever tried farm raised or wild caught?
When I go to the deli, go to the grocery store, I always try to get wild caught. Like when it comes to salmon, or I try to always, I have a really good relationship with the butcher and the seafood guy. Great. Now,
let's talk about the fact of, do we see that there's a pro or a con? Because guess what? We can, the 3 chefs here, Chef Greg, Jonathan, myself, we can make an argument for all of them. Okay, there are pros to being farm raised. There's pros to wild caught. There are also cons to both. Okay, Anna, I see your hand up.
Yes, isn't farm raised? It's a little. It looks a little lighter in color.
Great observation.
Caught, right?
Yeah, totally. I'm going to pull up a visual right now so that way we can see this. We're going to use salmon as an example, because I think that's what you're referring to. You'll notice that
Isn't it a little bit meatier also, the farm raised?
Fattier, yeah. It has more fat content for sure. Let me pull up a visual for everybody. It's not the whiskey pods that we were talking about, but here we go. So here's a pretty good visual. As you can see, there's a lot more fat content in the farm raised compared to the wild caught. And you'll see that there is a bit of coloring difference, okay? Now, there are many varieties of salmon, right? There's Chinook, there's coho, and those have varying levels of intensity of red flesh as well. Now, when we start thinking about this, okay, so why would there be a difference in color? What adds to the color of a flesh of fish? What do we think determines that? Travis?
Their diet.
Their diet and what they're eating, if they're farm raised or wild.
Yep, exactly. Their diet. Great job. Yes. So, 2 options, right? When you're thinking about wild fish, they are out in their natural environment, swimming around and eating things they would naturally encounter in the oceans or the rivers, and eating what they would find, okay? That red hue comes from eating krill. Krill is red, and it dyes their flesh red. Okay, so in a farm-raised situation, if they're not getting krill in their diet, it could be added by color. Okay, coloring added to their food pellets, because in a farm-raised situation, oftentimes they're going to be getting fed pellets, just like different animals on a farm, right? They have a feed that's given to them, as opposed to walking around foraging and eating what they naturally would. This is the biggest difference between a farm-raised situation and a wild-caught situation, is what they're eating in natural environments. Okay, now there are some versions of farm-raised fish that are magnificent. They are so far off the coast. There's no contamination. They're in beautiful, pristine waters, and they're eating a lot of the natural things that they would be eating, except they're contained in larger pots. Okay, like cages. Now there are other versions of farm-raised where they are kept in small, landlocked, land-based pools, and they're overcrowded. They don't have a healthy diet. They don't have a healthy water, clean water, because there's too many fish, right? Too much contamination. Definitely do some research and look up. Again, that's what we will always go back to. What are the pros? What are the cons? Is there a cost difference? Is there a flavor difference? How do they react differently when you cook them? Okay? Mainly, what's the flavor profile that you're looking for? What's the budget you need to meet? What are your customers' demands? Okay? Majority of the time, if you're eating salmon out at a restaurant, that's all farm raised. Unless they are specifying that it is wild caught, you are eating farm raised salmon. CU2 goes for almost any of the fish. If you're getting wild caught, there's going to be a premium price associated with that, and they will note that on their menu because it is a draw. We're also at a time where we have a lot of contaminated waters, right? So something else to be thinking about. Well, what type of waters are our animals in? Okay. Now, another thing to think about is regulations worldwide. The US has different regulations for fish and seafood than other countries do. Okay. Has anybody ever heard of something of a species being overfished? Meaning we're fishing and catching too many of them, that their population size is getting smaller and smaller. They can't keep their schools up to enough size because we're catching them too quickly and eating them. We're not letting them grow to be a full size. So we have a big impact as humans and the fishing industry on what the health of our waters. Okay, now I'm going to pull up something that might be a little shocking for everybody. Who likes sushi here? I know I personally love sushi. I'll eat sushi all the time. Love it, love it, love it. And growing up, I certainly didn't have the budget for high quality sushi. Hey, even now I don't have the budget for high quality sushi, okay? And do I love some all-you-can-eat sushi? You're darn right. I'll be the first one in the line, okay? I love sushi. And guess what? I have probably been duped, and so has everybody on the screen if you're eating sushi out. Because guess what? Fish fraud. Yep, sounds crazy, but it's a real thing. One might say, how is there fish fraud? Well, mislabeling. What happens when you skin and fillet a fish and all you can see is their flesh? Can you tell the difference between a red snapper and another snapper, or a trout and another trout, a rainbow trout versus another one? Would you be able to identify and distinguish which fish is which when the skin is gone, it's just a fillet? You lose a lot of identifiers when you don't have that full fish there. Okay? So, also, where's the fraud taking place? Is it that it's mislabeled on the boat? Is it mislabeled when it gets here? Okay, there are a lot of possibilities where things happen. right? Because if I have a cheap fish and I can sell it and claim it's a more expensive fish, guess what I just made? Huge profit. Okay, so there's profitability that's at stake here. Okay, so let's take a look at this study that was completed by Oceana. It is very, very interesting. Oh, where are we? Sorry, one sec. There we go. All right. There we go. Seafood fraud nationwide. My favorite, sushi. Let's do this. All right. So some really important things here to note, which is the US is the second largest seafood consumer worldwide. That means that's a lot of seafood coming in here, right? And if we have a lot of seafood and fish fraud, oh, it means it's even more. All right. So let's take this down here. What they did, this study checked grocery stores, restaurants, and sushi restaurants. So look at this. We've got 18% of every snapper sample was mislabeled in Seattle, Washington. 21% mislabeled in Portland, Oregon. Going down to California, 38% mislabeled. Rockfish was substituted for snapper 34 times. And in Southern California, 52% was mislabeled. Denver, Colorado, 36%. Gulf grouper was sold as a more sustainable option, black grouper. Okay, right? So now you're saying, oh, this is a sustainable option. This is black grouper. And as an intrigued customer, I'm saying, yeah, I want to go with that sustainable choice. Think I'm making a good decision by helping the waters, and really, I'm not. Things happen. Again, Kansas City, Missouri, 35% mislabel. White tuna. White tuna is one of the most often mislabeled. If you see white tuna at a sushi restaurant, you're eating escalar. 95% of the time, I would say. Atlantic cod was sold as orange roughy. 49% of the retail outlet visited in Austin were mislabeled. In Austin, every sushi sample was mislabeled. This is shocking, right? This is our food system. Keep on going. Let's get to the East Coast. 18% mislabeled in Boston, Massachusetts. 56% in Pennsylvania. Tilapia was substituted for red snapper. 32% in Chicago mislabeled. Every sushi venue sold at least one mislabeled fish in the city of Chicago. That's where I live. I told you, I've been eating it. What are you gonna do? 39% in New York. Now this is really interesting. Tile fish. So people might say, well, what's the problem? Well, guess what? There are dangers. What if somebody's allergic to one fish and it's mislabeled as another? You eat that, boom, you've got a problem. There are also fish that are really high in mercury levels. And if you're pregnant or different state of immune, and you're eating something that has high levels of mercury, that can be really toxic for your system. So, like I said, tilefish is a fish on the FDA's do not eat list for sensitive groups due to high mercury. It was sold as halibut and red snapper in a small market. 26% in Washington, D.C., 25% in Georgia. Although they do have one little golden light where one of the few cities that sold the true red snapper. All right. 38% mislabeled in South Florida. King mackerel, a fish on the do not eat list, sold as grouper in a grocery store. Okay. So here's some interesting things. Take a quick look at this. These are commonly mislabeled fish. Chilean sea bass. What you got? Antarctic toothfish. Who even knew? Right? Atlantic cod for Pacific cod. Pacific cod for Asian catfish. Grouper for Asian catfish or king mackerel. all these, look, even salmon, wild king and sockeye, farms Atlantic salmon, sea bass, again, for that Antarctic toothfish, snapper coming in. Now, this is also the important thing to note. Here you go, mislabeled by retail outlet. So as you can see, grocery stores do quite a good job, right? They're only hovering at about 18%. While restaurants, 38%, and sushi venues, 74%. So what's going on, right? Where is the issue? We don't know. That's the problem. It is hard to track and find out. Until you're taking a sample from the actual flesh and finding out the DNA of the fish, it's really hard to tell just by looking at it, okay? That's the whole point. It is really difficult to tell. So if you're getting fish in at a restaurant, you're buying it for this, why would you question it? Most often, we're not. If somebody's selling Black Angus steak, we think they're selling us Black Angus steak. Just as if they're selling us grouper, we think we're receiving grouper. Okay? So there's some point in this supply chain where mislabeling is happening, misinformation. And yes, it is about profit. Somebody's doing something at some point to get a lot more profit, or trying to sell fish that are on a do not fish or a do not eat list. But that's getting fished and it's coming in. It's got to go somewhere. It's got to be sold. Again, different countries have different standards. So farm raised in one country is going to be a whole lot different than farm raised in another country, et cetera, et cetera. So really some good tips, which this is saying, you know, purchasing that whole fish, right? Then you see it, you know what's going on. But pretty shocking. Does anybody else find this absolutely, who's surprised by this? Yeah. Does anybody have any questions about that? All right. So remember, you know, working with your purveyor, having a good relationship with your purveyor, integrity of product, these are all important things to note. And being educated about your fish as well. What does it look like? What should it look like? This week, you've got some really cool videos on how to fabricate fish. There are 2 ways of fabricating fish, flat and round fish. Once you know the way, it's for all fish. So watch those videos. Does anybody know what keys, factors you look out for when you're purchasing fish? Say you're at the fish market. What do you look for? What's an indicator of a fresh fish? Does anybody know? I see it. Eyes, clear eyes, yes. Pink gills, yeah. Color, yeah. What else?
Smell.
Smell, I heard it. Smell, yeah, exactly. Great job. Yep. Slimy, all of these things, right? So these are really important factors to be looking at when you are purchasing fish if you're at a market. Those clear eyes are a dead giveaway. All right. As soon as they become cloudy, you're looking at an old fish. Okay. So it is harder to tell how fresh the fish is when you're looking at fillets that are pre-cut. Most fish is coming in frozen also, by the way, guys. It's almost often frozen, oftentimes frozen right on the ship as well, processed and harvested and done in and put into the freezing below. So when you're buying previously, most of the time you are buying, unless depending upon where you live, it's usually almost always previously frozen fish, especially where you're living. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about fishing methods as well. Who remembers tuna? Okay, when you get the tuna can and you see the dolphin friendly, all right, dolphin friendly, big thing. That happened because as tuna fishers, tuna is obviously just a big seller, right? Tuna can, tuna fish, fresh tuna, all of that, tuna sells. their fishing methods were picking up a lot of dolphins, because if depending upon the method that you're using, whether there are a bunch of methods, I'll pull these up so you can see, you can pick up a lot of fish that you're not intending to catch, called bycatch product. What do you do with that? Well, you sell it, right? You got to figure out a way to sell it, or it gets thrown back over across, off the boat. So let's look at this. Cool. One sec. Wrong one. Sorry.
Need the Monterey one, Chef? Oh, you already
yeah.
have.
Thank you. I just clicked desktop by accident.
Yeah, not a problem.
Whoopsie daisy. Things happen. All right. So Monterey Bay Aquarium. This is going to be a great go-to source for you as a consumer and as a manager and leader in the culinary industry. First of all, let's see. I think this has this. Wait 1 second. No. Where? So Monterey Bay Aquarium. All right. This is what you're going to want to do. You will, as you can see, you have all these different topics, right? Overfishing, all right? How are we overfishing? What's happening? Just a wealth of information. Illegal fishing, right? This is real. You've got limits of what you can catch, overfishing due to high demand, all of these very interesting things that are happening. Plus that bycatch that I mentioned, right? Look, we've got a sea turtle that's wrapped up in there. But this is what we want to look at. I think is it in the seafood recommendations? Yeah. Consumer guides. This is what you want to do. 1 second as it loads. We're having a little bit of a slow down here. There we go. All right, cool. So let's pick a state. Let's go for, where do we want to go? Let's do Georgia. All right, so here you go. You could download one for each state, and you will want to this is put on by the Monterey Bay Aquarium, so your best choices, okay? So barramundi, bass, catfish, clams, cod, crab, and you will notice that there's gonna be crab from different things, okay? Different places. So you've got 4 options of crab that are good here, but if you pop onto the middle, the good alternatives, you'll see, hey, there's some crab that's okay. And then you have crab all in the avoid, which is coming from Asia, Russia, Argentina, blue crab from all of these countries, from all of these states, okay? And as you can see, there's a reason, right? The green, best choices. They're well managed and caught or farmed responsibly, okay? Sustainably. Good alternatives, they're pretty good, right? And then avoid the red. You don't want to be using those. They are overfished, okay? Or they don't have good fishing practices surrounding them. All right, if you look at shrimp, here we go. We've got one of the best choices is US farmed shrimp. Then a good alternative, you got some Canada and US wild, Ecuador and Honduras farmed. And on the no, you've got other imported sources. Guess what? A lot of the shrimp out there, you're not getting US unless you're on the coast and getting this, unless it specifies it, okay? You're getting a lot of shrimp coming from other countries. And you don't know the practices. Again, we talked about FDA, US regulations for import and export versus international regulations. Every country is gonna have their different policies. So I want to show you one other thing about different fishing methods so that you can start to see why this is such a big deal. Also, the top imports, by the way, the US mainly imports seafood from China, Thailand, Canada, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Ecuador. That's the biggest ones, which is pretty crazy. That's where we're getting most of our seafood. This is, let me see where we've got it. I'm not able to locate this right now, but maybe I can find it. Sorry, class. Ah, yeah, found it. All right, here we go. This will give you an idea of there we go. Here are some of the fishing and farming methods, as you can see. Again, you can do a deep dive. This is located on your research page, this website. So do spend some time checking this, how it is. You've got bottom trawlers, you've got dredges, gill nets, hand glides and jigs, harpoons, which are not typically used anymore, but they are still in some cultures, long lines, midwater trawls, Poland line, pots. All of these are different trolling lines. All of these have different pros and cons to them, all right? Because you might catch a lot of fish that you're not intending to catch on a trowl line, okay? As you can see, this is for fish farming. Again, different ways of doing this. Pens, this is what we were talking about, okay? Pens that hold farm fish in open water is probably one of the best ways to do it because you have that open water, you have fresh water. When it's not in open water, there's a high risk for contamination and just an unhappy life for the fish, really. You're just cooped up with too many, you might get wounds from fishes, the fish being in a captive space, you know, the things happen. But then you have different forms of enclosed ponds. You've got hydroponics and aquaponics with recirculation, all these different unique ways of doing it. So the fact of the matter is the fish and seafood world is transforming right before our eyes. I mean, farm-raised fish wasn't a huge thing 20, 25 years ago. It just wasn't. But guess what? Population, growing, demand, right? Everything starts to shift. Again, it goes down to what flavor profile are you looking for, right? Quality, integrity of product, and what's going to work in your budget and for your customers. Because some people, it's not important to them where their shrimp is coming from. They just want it to be delicious. They want it battered, deep fried. They want it served in with their cocktail sauce, and that's what matters, right? There's a lot of lack of knowledge for everybody about everything, right? So the more we know, the more we do research on, the better purchasers we can be, and to be managers of our own future, right? Of what are we supporting? Maybe you can't afford to get wild caught salmon all the time. So what do? Maybe you supplement that, or you don't have it as often. It's all about making a balance and making decisions what's best for your establishment. Okay. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Let's hop into, does anybody have any questions on this? Everybody feeling groovy? Ready to do some research on fish and figure out what we're eating, right? Fish and seafood are very, very interesting, especially when you talk about even cooking it, right? Cooking it, it's very delicate. It can't be handled like other proteins. Fish is by nature, right? It spoils a lot quicker than other meat, right? it's delicate. If you have to keep it on ice. I mean, there are all these little things that really go into executing a wonderful fish dish. So let's pull up this class page and let's get into it a little bit. There's so much out there, everybody. Always make up your own decisions, do your own research. We are here to give you a base layer of what's going on out there for you to then expand on, to dive deeper if it interests you. If it doesn't interest you, then it doesn't interest you. But it should if it's something that you're eating and something that you're serving your customers. It should be important to you. All right. Let's do this. All right, here we are. The week 5, as I said, we've got all of that information in your research materials right here. As you can see, you've got the a little slide of farm to table, our oceans right here. That's another open water pen, quite the operation going there. Just a little bit of a brief overview on aquaculture and sustainable seafood. And then, of course, you've got the link to wild seafood, which is the Seafood Watch with Monterey Bay Aquarium. A ton of great information on fabricating and cooking fish, and then your videos, okay? Fabricating, and then actually executing. So when we check out the assignment, you will see that, yes, you're required for both of these. This is the same recipe, so it's quite simple. For both the vegetable and the seafood or fish. Here's the recipe. As you can see, you can use any fish or shellfish. You can do clams, you can do shrimp, you can do fillets, you can do anything you want, really. Now, when you're cutting out a piece of parchment in a heart shape, it's really easy. Just remember when you were kids and you made Valentine cards, fold it in half, and then do a half shape heart, okay? Keep it easy. That's gonna be your base. You're gonna put your fish in there or your vegetables. And then the really important thing is crimping the edges around your en-papilote package. Because why? Because we're steaming it, right? Essentially, we are steaming these products. So you've gotta keep it sealed so that it generates enough heat and steam to cook the product. Butter, salt, pepper, parsley, marjoram, a little bit of chopped shallot, and lemon slices. Now, if for some reason you can't find marjoram, you can omit that. You could substitute another dried herb, but just omit the marjoram. And if you can't find a shallot, an onion will do the job. But otherwise, you're gonna want everything else in there. And again, very simple. You're gonna be just oiling that. You can use foil if you don't have parchment paper, by the way. It does the same thing, but traditionally it is paper. Oil it down, build your, put your fish in there or your seafood along with the butter and lemon and herbs, fold and crimp, start it in a saute pan, okay, to get heat. And then you're gonna transfer that into the oven. And what's going to happen is you're going to see all that steam is causing the package to puff up. Okay, you'll see that as you start cooking it right on the range, and then as you transfer, put it in anywhere between 5 and 8 minutes. And if you need to get a little bit more brown coloring, you can just throw that under the broiler for a second. Traditionally, you would serve it, and you would open it up in front of the guests, and again, like I said, you're hit with the aroma. Right there. Looking at the vegetables, again, identical recipe, just substituting a vegetable or mixed vegetable. Otherwise, down to the letter, it is the same. Does anybody have any questions regarding the technique?
Renelle has their hand up.
Yes, Renelle.
Yes. I have a question about the mushroom. I don't have the dry one. I have ground. So would that still be good?
For marjoram?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you can use dry. That'll do the job. Or the ground.
No, I have ground.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that'll work.
Okay.
Yeah, or if it'll just be sure that you get it nice and evenly distributed because it's ground. But yeah, that'll do the job.
Okay. I'll just make sure I pat it like evenly on the fish.
Yep, there you go. Remember, sprinkling from above is also really good. Like when you're seasoning, a little bit higher up gives you a better distribution as opposed to going right on there. Then it's concentrated.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Anybody else have any questions? Or chefs, anything else that you want to add that I probably forgot about?
I was just going to say, and I was trying to do one and show it. I'm sitting here. But for the cutting of the heart, we kind of get this a lot. Just remember, it's just like arts and crafts. Take your parchment paper, fold it in half, draw the heart, just one half of a heart, cut it out, unfold it, and then you'll have both pieces of the heart. You don't actually have to draw it out or try to cut an entire piece of parchment. And then a couple other things to note is leave yourself some space. You don't want to have the fish and then your parchment just packed in there because you want to create steam, and the steam's going to create flavor and aroma. So you want to leave yourself some rim space. The rim space is going to help you fold it. It's going to be a lot easier to fold. And then when you see it in the oven, it's going to puff up like a pillow, and you need that puff up to be able to cook it. You need that steam. So definitely leave yourself some rim space around it. Don't try to just wrap it into a tight little heart on the fish. For Rita, for your answer, you do not have to pre-cook it in a pan. You can preheat your oven, put it on top of a sheet tray or in a pan and put it in there. The reason that we're saying that is because there's two kind of different ways to do it. If you were in a restaurant serving this, you'd want to start it in a pan. You're starting that steaming process right away, and you could take, ideally, the whole saute pan, put it into the oven, take it out when it's done. However, if you preheat your oven, you put it on a sheet tray, you put it into your oven, you're going to get the same thing. It's just going to take a little longer. That's why both of those are there. It's more of like a restaurant style way to do it, but either way is going to work perfect.
Obviously, if you're doing a load of them, right, bulk, you're going to be doing that on a sheet pan, right, a sheet tray. You're going to load them all up. You're not going to do an individual one in a saute pan. So it's more of this idea of really old school French cookery, right, where you're getting an order in, you're placing it down, and you're going in. All right. Does anybody have any other questions?
Would it not be better to put the fish on top of the lemon and herbs instead of the other way around from the chat?
So really, they'll both do the job, right? Because you're going to be steaming, and presentation-wise, you're going to have that nice lemon on top and the herbs on top. So it's more of again, it's the presentation thing. If you could put some lemon down below and herb if you wanted, and on top, but that aroma is going to get in there either way that you cook it. Skin on or off if using fish, really up to you. I love skin, but it is going to get it's not going to be, because you're steaming it, right? You're not necessarily going to get crispy skin through this preparation, but I think that you do get a lot of flavor. So it really it's a personal preference for you on that one. And is a sauce ever required for this? No, it's not required. All those juices are going to be kept inside of your package, so that it's a very light sauce. But you could, of course, serve it with a sauce. There's nobody saying that you can't serve it with a sauce. So if you want to make a side sauce, go for it. Yeah, dill sauce would be great. Dill is a classic component pairing for seafood and fish. Also, when you're thinking about this, right, when you start learning and cooking more, think about what flavors go well with each other, right? What marries well, what pairs well. There's a great book called Culinary Artistry, and now they have a newer version called the Flavor Bible. If you're ever looking for a way to expand your knowledge, I remember I loved referencing that book. It gives you inspiration, and you think, oh, wow, I never thought that this herb and this meat would go well together. It helps a lot. Awesome, Charles. Yeah, Rita. Rita, can't hear anything. And you're not muted, so I don't know what's going on. Rita, send me a message and I can help you. All right, cool, sounds good. All right. Well then, class, if you have any, hey Rita, send it to me in like the normal in my normal email like Moodle, because that way I can get it, because we're gonna close this down. I don't want to miss it. Okay. All right, class. If you don't have any questions, any other questions, then have fun with this assignment. Enjoy it. I highly suggest, if you have the funds and can do it, this would be a cool opportunity and time to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to get a small fillet of a wild caught salmon and a small fillet of a farm raised, and do a side-by-side comparison. That's some of the times the best way to understand the differences. You might find out you like one, you prefer one over the other. That's fine. A farm-raised fish is going to have a little bit milder of a flavor, like especially salmon compared to wild-caught salmon. Very different flavor profiles, okay? Different fat content, even a different texture to the flesh. So if you have the opportunity, I would highly suggest doing a little side-by-side comparison. If not this time, another time, do it when you're at the stores and looking. Check it out. Check and see what those color differences are and everything. I see Gary's asking if when plating, do you leave it in the paper or transfer it to a plate? You can do either one, but remember, in the classic way that in papilote would be presented to the guest, and it would be opened in front of the guest so that you're then hit with the aroma. So totally up to you, but that is part of the experience of en papilote. And you need separate bags, Rita, one for your fish or seafood, one for your vegetable. Okay. And I think that's about it. So class, if you have questions, please do reach out. We are all here to help you. We want you to be successful. If you've missed an assignment already, knock it out, get it in the makeup assignment area now so you don't have to deal with it later. And other than that, have fun, enjoy, keep cooking, and that's it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, chefs. Good night.
Take care.
Thank you. Good night, chef.
Bye.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.